The punker man himself, our good friend Philly Phil, CM Punk, did an interview with Jimmy Traina this week with SI Media to promote SummerSlam, as CM Punk heading into what I feel should be the main event, unless Roman Reigns is returning. There's no reason that Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes or Gunther versus Damian Priest needs to go on after CM Punk and Drew. That's the match I want to see. Punk versus Drew. Fucking give it to me. Put it in my veins. So that's what I'm excited to see. But they had a good conversation. Jimmy did try to get into a little AEW stuff, which was kind of a misstep because Punk just brushed that off. He doesn't want to talk about it. Couldn't be bothered. Doesn't care.
I'm going to come in hot just because I feel like if you're any part of the wrestling world and you've been on social media today, everyone's losing their minds and going crazy because there's a photo of Shane McMahon meeting with Tony Khan, and you have a history with both AEW and WWE. I'll just say, Punk, what are your thoughts?
Pass.
Would it shock you if he ended up in that company?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I know there are probably people listening to this waiting for me to ask you about all that stuff. I would imagine you're so sick of talking about that and there's nothing else to say about the way you left AW, right? I mean, is there anything else to cover? I mean, you've covered it all.
No,
I know.
Pass.
I know. Well, I had to ask you about the Shane McMahon thing because that happened today, and there's photo proof now. So, like, if I have you on and I don't ask, they're gonna think I'm a nuts.
No, that's all good. No, I understand.
Yeah. Do you when AEW made a big deal about showing the footage of what happened, did that irritate you, or you didn't care?
It felt really ugly. But then I was just like, why? Like, showing that footage isn't gonna help them or hurt me. So I was just like, whatever. And
did you get?
I was just said being the top draw in like 2 different companies is pretty wild. Thanks guys.
Yeah.
But it was in this clip here where Jimmy asked Punk about the difference between working for Vince and working for Triple H, and if that made a difference, if he would have still come back to WWE had Vince been in charge. Here's what Punk had to say.
Now, Triple H, there's a guy, Triple H, Paul Levesque, Hunter, a lot of names.
We all got names, man.
Yeah. How has it been working with him compared to Vince?
It's been great. I honestly, if I ever, how do I put this? In the world where media literacy is absolutely 6 feet under dead and people just sensationalize headlines. I think Vince would make people wait outside his office. There'd be like a line. You know what I mean? And people would be like intimidated by that. And I don't get that read off of Triple H at all. I don't see people waiting outside his office. Like, oh, how long you been here? I've been here for 3 hours. I never had that with Vince. I would always just go in and ask him a question, if I needed to. Never trying to waste his time, never trying to waste Triple H's time. But I see him being a lot more hands-on with people and approachable and accessible. Right. So he wants everybody to be their best because he wants the show to be the best. So there's no, leftover 80s, macho kind of weird energy going on.
So if it was the same company and Vince was still there, do you go back?
I don't think so. No. I think the door being open with Vince leaving, I think really kind of almost expedited things, being told that it's a completely different place and kind of having to have blind faith to go back into that is a risk. But now I can tell you, I think it's a completely different place.
That was a really key point that Punk said that I hadn't really quite thought about. I mean, obviously, I kind of knew subconsciously, but the fact that Triple H doesn't play these macho head games that Vince likes to play. Vince likes tough guys. Vince likes to put guys against each other and build the animosity between people because that makes them better competitors in the ring, right? It challenges them to work harder and contribute more if they feel like they got to compete with the guy next to them. Vince would do that a lot. All the bullying bullshit that Vince McMahon was famous for. All of that seems to be out the window with Triple H, at least for now. Triple H was like that once upon a time. He kind of calmed down in his older age. Once he started taking over NXT, Triple H, because it feels like people almost forget at this point. Triple H had the worst reputation. He was one of the, if not the biggest locker room backstage politicians. This was the guy that would sit in on creative meetings and help push himself and his friends and kind of bury other people that he didn't like. He played the game, both in ring and outside the ring, and that's why he is the game. But that kind of slowed down. Once he took over NXT, it was kind of like, okay, this isn't about me anymore. He was able to make that hard transition and really kind of run with it. And he still had a little bit of that attitude and stuff in him. That pissant company. He said, we'll buy them in a couple years. He said about AEW. He still got that fight in him a little bit, but even after his heart attack or whatever the heart condition that he ended up with, I feel like he's gotten even softer than that. And Triple H is like Papa H now. He's just like the friendly dad backstage. He's the voice of reason. He calms people's down. He gets people's head on straight. He gives them their direction and he sets the course. And he's very easy to work with by all accounts. It doesn't seem to be many details of any kind of butting heads over the whole Cody Rhodes situation. Triple H was very adamant that Cody Rhodes should still get that main event shot. Rock, not so much. But Triple H worked with him throughout it. It wasn't a fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And maybe part of that, too, is that Triple H, he's not really family anymore, is he? He's still got the gig, but he's very replaceable at this point. All the people above him, it's not pops anymore. It's not father-in-law that he goes and brings the grandkids over his house and swims in the pool and has cookouts and shit, exchanges Christmas presents with. That's not what's going on anymore. It's not a family business anymore. Triple H is very replaceable. So there is a little bit of that go along to get along too. You can't just tell The Rock to piss off, for example. But by all accounts, he seems very easy to work with. And Punk said that he probably would not have come back if it was under Vince. Because it wasn't just the burnout. Punk was very burnt out, yes. But he was also fed up with the way that everything was being run in WWE. And it kind of boils down when you go back and you listen to that big, long Colt Cabana podcast that he did when he left WWE. It seems a lot of his frustrations stem from the culture that Vince McMahon likes to create and the games that get played backstage. And it's just a very taxing, mentally exhausting place to work under Vince McMahon. Not so much under Triple H. People have fun. People are able to contribute their ideas. And he doesn't really argue or play games or bully people. Now, I'm sure there's people that don't like him. People that were happier with their push under Vince. Austin Theory, I'm sure, is one of those people who was very happy with his push under Vince. But as Roman said, your daddy ain't here no more. I think Triple H is doing a fantastic job. I'm glad that he has created a work culture, an environment, a creative process that people are excited to be part of. And we just heard that CM Punk, because he only signed a 1-year contract, which was smart, by the way, because, a 1-year contract, who knows? Punk was very volatile at the time, and who knows what you were buying into. 1 year, You know, you can get him in, get a couple big stories out of him, and then just let him move on with his life if you didn't like working with him. But everything seems to be going golden right now. And Punk has even said, like I was going to say, his story came out, Punk is willing to work there for life if he's able to. He's eyeballing Shawn Michaels' job down in NXT. He wants to be there even past the point of his own in-ring career, contributing somehow, some way to the next generation. He likes that. That's fun for him. It seems to be fun for a lot of the ex-guys. Triple H says it's almost more rewarding than his own career, is watching the people he developed from ground zero, from scratch all the way up. Shawn Michaels seems to enjoy it too. That could be a great path for CM Punk. I'm glad that we have him back. I know Punk has a lot of his haters. I've not been shy by saying I am a huge Punk mark. But, and injuries aside and in-ring stuff is still to be determined at this point. But Punk, just the story that he's telling in WWE since he's been back. He came in hot working with Rollins and then was able to pivot and create a really hot angle with Drew. And he talked a little bit about that in this interview too, about how he was able to still be the hottest angle, the most watched clips, the highest viewed segment of the show, creating the most buzz without ever being able to actually physically compete, just by using his words. Use your words. So I think Punk is a phenomenal talent. You can love him or you can hate him, but you can't say that his stories suck or they're boring or they're uninteresting. I don't know how you can watch this entire Drew McIntyre story unfold and go, yeah, there's just, it's not really doing it for me. Maybe if you just hate both those guys, but there's a lot to chew on. So much so that I feel like that will be the main event. It should be the main event unless Roman comes back. But I think I'm going to do a separate video for SummerSlam predictions so we can talk more about it there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off, but I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Let's keep that conversation going. Are you happy Punk came back? And what do you think about the current WWE versus Vince McMahon's WWE? I think that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But do you see any differences where maybe Triple H is falling short? He's not really attaining the level that Vince did. He's not really doing as much as Vince did and not doing as good of a job as Vince did. But overall, it's a good thing for the business. It's great. I'm happy to see people are happy in WWE. And, it's a place where they can feel proud to go to work again instead of like, oh, my God, this place is hell. It's miserable. Because you've heard it. Everybody's got their horror stories from coming out of WWE. But those were all people that dealt with Vince. And now they don't have to. That video there was a real slobber knocker. Head on down to the comments, put a little barbecue sauce on the like button. And while you're there, I would subscribe so you don't miss any other videos. Leave a comment. Everybody's got a fucking comment.